54 Thunder Road. My first bike was pink. It was a girl's bike that my father bought at a yard sale. He bought one for my brother, too. But then, realizing his mistake, that 1, we both really didn't want girls' bikes at all, and 2, we didn't even want to be seen riding a girl's bike. Like, ever. So my father's solution was that he went down to the hardware store in Hereford and bought rolls and rolls of colored tape, of which we both spent the better part of an afternoon covering the entire pink frames and floral seats in tape to hide anything and everything, any idea that looked anything like a girl's bike. But let's be perfectly clear, under that faux disguise, a girl's bike is still a girl's bike. The low, swept frame for skirts and the long, swooping handlebars with pink and purple tassels that I cut off. Just now the bike was covered almost entirely in colored tape. Black, red, and orange, colors I probably liked or associated with being a boy. But also more likely because they were the colors of motorcycles. And I remember that in the summer, too, in Maryland, it used to get really hot. Like, really, really hot. So hot, in fact, that the asphalt road and hill that went by our house on Bernuti Road would bleed. A kind of tarry ooze. And any time I left my bike outside, its tape would ooze, too. An awful mess, the gummy adhesive transferring itself onto the seat of my shorts. It was then and there that I knew. All I wanted was something new. Brand new. So I'd spend hours and hours dreaming, wanting and waiting for what I didn't have. Something to do, I guess, but also I was wanting to search for some kind of masculinity. Something that I could identify with. A man that looked dark, tough, and aggressive. The one thing that actually wasn't really me at the time, 10 years old and tow-headed. I even looked like a girl, too. What grabbed me the most was that at that time, anything and everything came from a catalog that came every 4 months to our door. In it, I saw something that I thought was perfect, and I was obsessed about it, too. It was a 20-inch Huffy bicycle from Sears. It was black, with knobby tires and super shiny aluminum wheels. It resembled a motorcycle. It had a thick padded seat with a beefy chrome-plated bar, a far cry from that skimpy pink banana-style seat on the girl's bike. And the new bike had a flashy red reflector on the rear, a silvery white one hung on the front end, and its handlebars had a sturdy crossbar with black, squishy comfort grips. The bike also had a squarish plate hung on the front with the number 54. It had an oval side plate, too, repeating that number. And what it meant was this bike was made for racing. And they named it 54 Thunder Road. I'd look through other catalogs every day to try to find a better bike, but I'd still come back to the Sears catalog with its pages well dog-eared by now. I'd keep coming back to that old 54. I'd admire the silver fenders and the bold orange stripe, and the knobby tires too, imagining I'd be able to go off-road. There was a trail behind our house that led down to the Gunpowder River. I would be able to go over or through anything. And lastly, I loved the way it just leaned on its kickstand, like it was waiting to be ridden. All of it wasn't really real at all. It was kids' fantasy stuff, as it was all just in a catalog, a book. But once we actually went to the store in Towson, and that's where I saw one for the first time. It was fully assembled on the showroom floor. I even rode it for a brief spill until the salesman rushed over and told me it wasn't allowed. It was then and there I knew I had to have one. But I think at the time the cost of it was $54 too, which at that time was a lot of money. But I'd been saving up, though. I mowed the lawn once a week and did chores for our neighbors, the Coopers. And I also had a yard sale where I tried to sell my plastic big wheel with no seat, which for those of you that don't know, it was kind of a low-rider tricycle. I was coming to sort of the realization that the chapter of kids stuff was behind me. I also was trying to sell some of my father's tools on a makeshift table down on our driveway. On our road, I remember trying to flag down cars, and there weren't many that went by. But someone stopped and bought a pair of vice grips. I can't remember, for like 50 cents or something, and then my father came down and he wasn't happy. I had hoped that he would have been more supportive of my entrepreneurial skills in trying to earn what I wanted, But I'm not sure he talked to me for quite a while after that. That's what used to happen when I did something wrong. My father would get very quiet. Looking back, I guess I would have hoped that he would have said something like, "It's just a tool, Andy. It's no big deal." But that wasn't the case, and yes, in retrospect, I shouldn't have tried to sell his tools. But I was desperate. Because we lived in the sticks, amongst nothing but cornfields in rural Maryland, and there was pretty much zero to do. And I was always searching for something that I could do myself. Eventually, when I had saved up enough money, we did drive to the Sears store and I bought that bike. That was the first day I remember being truly happy. It was the beginning of a very brief time in my life. My excitement assembling all of the parts myself in the garage, with my dad's tools, of course. But I made some calls, though. I threw away the protective pads and ditched the chain guard, too. And then, I rode it. I rode it everywhere. The 54 Thunder Road. I rode it for 4 years until I jumped it off a ramp into a pond. It eventually rusted away, and when BMX bikes came around, all I wanted was one of those, too. So again I saved. I dreamed. And a new quest began for that whole contentment. I'd never feel that way again. Not even close, but darn if I don't find myself bored these days and seemingly unhappy. Always searching for that contentment that one bike brung. That 54 Thunder Road.